Order. Meeting called to order. The time is 6:59. We're early today. Public portion of the meeting begins. The New Jersey Open Public Meeting Law was enacted to ensure the right to the public to have advance notice of and to attend the meetings of public bodies at which any business affecting their interest is discussed or acted upon. In accordance with the provisions of this act, the Business Administrator Board Secretary has caused notice of this meeting to be published by having the date, time, and place thereof posted on the bulletin board of the municipal building, communicated to the Herald News, the Record, and filed with the clerk of the Borough of Hawthorne. Roll call, please.
Mr. Carr? Mr. Clavijo?
Here.
Mr. Doyle?
Here.
Ms. Arentraut?
Here.
Dr. Morrell?
Present.
Mr. Palouse?
Here.
Mr. Shortway?
Here.
Mr. Totaro?
Here.
Mrs. Scott?
Here. Please join me for the flag salute. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Meeting regulations. During each regular meeting, 2 opportunities are provided for citizens to ask questions and make comments. During the first opportunity early on the agenda, the meeting is open to the public for the purpose of addressing items listed for approval on this agenda only. The second opportunity occurs just prior to adjournment, when citizens may address any subject matter that is pertinent to and/or directly related to the operation of the school district. Persons wishing to speak must, upon being recognized, rise, state their name, address, and subject matter. Comments and questions shall be addressed to the board president or the presiding officer and shall be limited to 5 minutes per person. The board may or may not respond to any issues raised by members of the public at the time they are raised, but will provide a response if and when appropriate. The board asks that members of the public be courteous and mindful of the rights of other individuals when speaking. Please note that the board will not respond to comments regarding students or board employees in light of the privacy rights held by those individuals. Moreover, the board discourages comments about such individuals and will not be responsible for such comments. Members of the public who choose to speak during this public session should carefully consider their comments, since they could be held personally liable for any statements they make. Finally, please note that in accordance with district policy, the board will not officially comment or respond to any matter mentioned unless it can confirm the matter has first been brought to the attention of the appropriate school personnel in an attempt to resolve the issue. Publicly heard agenda items only. Correspondence. Turn it over to you for the budget presentation.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, thank you for those who are here tonight, as well as those who are watching at home. Tonight, we are here to discuss and present to you the 2023-2024 Hawthorne Public Schools budget. The goal this evening is to provide our parents and community members with an overview of the 23-24 budget for the Hawthorne Public School District. Before we begin, I'd like to just share a few thoughts. First, I want to share that, as we talk about in our work sessions and throughout this budget development process, is that the budget, developing an annual budget for our school district is always challenging, every year, for numerous different reasons, and we're going to talk about some of those reasons tonight, why this year's budget was so challenging. But what I will share is that our board and administration take great care in developing this budget, as we recognize the importance of quality schools for everyone, not only in our school district, but within our community as well. We remain dedicated to providing the skills and opportunities necessary for our students to be successful, while remaining mindful of our fiscal responsibility to our taxpayers in the community of Hawthorne. Throughout this lengthy process, we also consider the goals developed as part of the strategic planning process, which includes student achievement and opportunity, community commitment, facilities, and a safe environment. And you'll see the connections to those goals or those goal areas throughout tonight's presentation. Finally, as I do every year, I want to take a moment to show our appreciation for the ongoing support of our school PTOs, the Athletic Booster Club, the Hawthorne Education Foundation, Project Graduation, and our Special Education Parent Advisory Council. The support that they provide, the financial support they provide throughout the year is appreciated and beneficial to our students and our staff in all of our schools. I want to thank them for their continued support. And with that said, let's talk a little bit about what we're going to be discussing tonight. So I'm going to start tonight by giving a brief referendum update. As you know, back in 2019, we passed a referendum and have been working to complete projects related to that referendum since 2019. We're getting close to the end. We're not quite there yet, but we're closing in on the end, or getting to the end of this referendum projects. And I want to update you on just some of the projects that are happening this coming summer. We will then briefly discuss the budget process. We'll provide some historical context as to previous year's budgets and the challenges with this year's budget. And then some initiatives and opportunities that the administration has pursued in regard to fiscal efficiencies and ways to supplement the tax revenue that we raise through taxes. We'll continue with information about our school district, followed by a discussion of the general tax levy, revenues and appropriations. And finally, we'll close the presentation with some specific items that are included in the 23-24 budget in all of our schools, in all areas of our school district. All right? So, with that said, let me talk briefly about the referendum. So as I mentioned, we passed the referendum in September of 2019, and since that time, we've implemented a one-to-one Chromebook initiative in grades 6 through 12. We've updated numerous classrooms in all of our schools. We've completed partial roof replacements in just about all of our schools. We've completed complete roof replacement at Washington School. We've done some boiler replacements, security cameras. We've installed new windows and interior doors in all of our schools, replaced our fire alarm system. And this summer, we are completing the projects that you see listed on the slide here. So this summer, we're working toward the completion of 3 additional science classrooms or labs at the high school. Last summer, we did 2. This summer, we'll do the other 3. We'll also be renovating our media center at Hawthorne High School. We'll be participating or completing a renovation of our elevator at the high school and continuing the process of completing the generators at all of our schools. That won't be done this summer. That has unfortunately been delayed, and they're anticipating installation of the generators to begin in the fall of 2023. A lot of the work, the prep work has been done for those generators. It's just the equipment that will be installed throughout the school year. So again, we're coming toward the end of these projects. For more information, you can visit our website, and there's pictures as well as lists of projects that have been completed in all of our schools. But just to be clear, this is not part of our operating budget every year. This is separate money that was raised through a bond referendum back in 2019. So again, it's not part of our operating budget, these funds. These are separate funds. But I just felt it was important to update our community on where we are in that process. Okay. So, talking about the budget, I want to give you a quick background of this process. I can tell you this process takes months. It's not something that we do overnight. It's months long, and there's numerous parties or people that are involved in this process. So I can start by saying in late fall, our building administrators work with, and our department leaders work with myself and Ms. Ambrose to discuss their needs, not only in the schools, but in each of their departments. They talk about the needs for the coming year. We talk about some wish list items, things they'd like to have, and then from there we begin developing the budget. And Ms. Ambrose and I work together in that process. Then as we get into January and February, we begin to present our initial proposed budget with our finance committee. It's a small committee of the board, and we work with the finance committee to begin reviewing those items and what should be included. We have conversations about our state aid numbers, the tax levy, our projected revenues and appropriations, and possible cuts that will be needed to balance the budget. The preliminary budget is then presented to the full board, and we did that on March 6th. We had a public work session on March 6th of 2023 this year, where the full board has an opportunity to look over the budget line by line and talk about areas, ask questions, talk about areas that may need to be revised, modified, changed, and then from there the board approves the preliminary budget to be sent to the Passaic County Office of Education on or before March 20th for the county's approval. Once the county approves the budget, it's then submitted back to the district for the board to formally approve, which is why we're here tonight, so I can present and hopefully approve the budget for the 23-24 school year. All right, and that's just a quick summary, but again, this is a long process to develop this budget. So, again, to provide some historical context, back in 2012, the governor, who was Governor Christie at the time, allowed districts to move from April elections to November elections without a budget vote, as long as you maintained or kept within a 2% increase, or 2% or less, I should say. As long as you maintained that 2% or kept within that 2% increase, districts could not have the community vote on those budgets. The new legislation did also allow for adjustments, things like healthcare, enrollments, and et cetera. We're going to talk about adjustments because we're going to be, we did avail ourselves of a healthcare adjustment for our budget this coming year, and that's why I mentioned that the legislation did allow for those adjustments. I can share with you that since I arrived in 2015, this board has remained cognizant of their responsibilities to the taxpayers in this community, and not asking for more than is needed. All right, and I share that with you because over the past 8 years, as you can see from the slide on the screen right now, the administration and board have requested what was needed. And I can tell you that one of the years in those 8 years, we were at 2%. 3 of the years, we were actually below 2%. And again, asking for what we needed at the time. In those years, maybe we got some more state aid, or maybe costs weren't as significant as you're going to see with some of the costs this year. And yes, 4 years we did exceed that 2% cap. I can tell you that the overall average of those 8 years is about a 2.5% increase over those 8 years. All right. Now, for us, a 2% increase in this year's budget equates to about $823,000, $823,353 to be exact. So you may be saying, well, why, if you have that money, you can raise that money through taxes, why would you need to ask for more than 2% or avail yourselves of this adjustment? Well, let me provide some examples, okay? All school districts, I can tell you, all school districts in New Jersey are dealing with challenges and different challenges, but let me give you some examples of some of the things that we're facing. I can tell you that we're facing a nationwide teacher shortage, paraprofessional and bus driver shortage, which have increased costs. Right? It has increased salaries that we've required to pay some of our incoming staff. It's also increased the cost of some of the bus routes that we outsource. We do have some of our own buses, but we do outsource some of our routes, especially our out-of-district students, and those costs have gone up because of the shortage of bus drivers. As of January 2023, we've realized a 15% increase in school health employee benefits. We've also seen increases in district security costs, out-of-district student costs, including Passaic County Technical School, and our special education costs, which include busing those students. So all of the above items and more, I mean, these are just a few examples, are what create challenges for school districts and have created challenges for us in developing this budget, okay? And as you're going to see tonight, I'm going to show you some of these examples and why the board has decided to utilize $736,000 of allowable healthcare adjustment funds to help balance our budget. So let me give you some examples of these rising costs. Here's one. As you will see from this example, these are our tuition costs for our students in charter schools, Passaic County Tech, and our special ed out-of-district students. As you can see, from the 22-23 school year to the 23-24 school year, you'll see an increase of over $500,000 in all, if you added up all these costs from one year to the next. It's over $500,000 of increases in costs. All right? Another example is our health benefit costs. And this example shows, again, the 15% increase in health benefit costs, which equates to approximately a $1 million increase. So those two items alone are about a $1.5 million increase. That doesn't include, again, transportation costs, operating costs, salaries, so on and so forth. All right, so you see that we're dealing with, we're faced with a 2% cap and all of these significantly increasing costs, which make developing this budget extremely challenging. Now, with that said, the other thing that the district continues to explore is opportunities to save money and find efficiencies. So in terms of our fiscal efficiencies, we're part of numerous consortiums which provide opportunities for better pricing, And here's some examples of that. We're part of an insurance consortium for liability and workers' compensation. We're part of a statewide consortium for purchasing internet access. We're part of big consortiums for instructional and office supplies, technology equipment, and transportation. We're part of an E-rate program for telecommunications, which are phone and internet costs. We outsource our cafeteria services, and we have shared service contracts with the borough for garbage recycling and school security. So those are some of the things that we can do to help offset some of our costs, some efficiencies. The other thing that we've done as a school district is we have researched and submitted applications for several grant opportunities to supplement our revenue and facilitate needed replacements, upgrade things like HVAC, heating and ventilation systems. This year we'll be doing some work at Jefferson and Lincoln Middle Schools. We put out a grant for partial roof replacement at Roosevelt and Lincoln School, as well as a district-wide communication project. I can tell you that to date, we've been awarded those first two items on that slide. We've been awarded those first two grants, and we're awaiting responses on numbers 3 and 4. And number 5 is something that we're currently working on with our grant writer, and we'll hope to be receiving that grant as well. But should we receive these grants, that totals over $2.1 million in grant funding, which reduces the burden to the school district and, of course, the taxpayer. So although we are facing rising costs, right, we are trying to find efficiencies and opportunities for us to bring money in from outside sources to help fund some of the projects that are needed throughout our district. Okay. So with that said, let's talk a little bit about the numbers for this coming budget, for the 23-24 budget. So obviously the 23-24 budget supports all of our current instructional staff and programs, as well as our facilities, and a total enrollment of 2,413 students. Our total budget for the 23-24 school year is $53,442,404. In regard to our general tax levy, as you can see from the top line of this chart, we are availing ourselves of the $736,655 of allowable health care adjustment, as well as our normal 2% increase, which is $823,000. So our proposed tax levy increase for this year is 3.79, including debt service, and that creates an overall tax increase, and you see on the bottom line the totals of 3.81%. So what does that mean for the average homeowner in Hawthorne? So the average assessed home valued at $381,026, and that's, by the way, that's not a number that we come up with, that's a number that's provided to us on the average assessed home in Hawthorne. So on the average assessed home, the tax increase from last year to this 23-24 school year is $205.40 per year, or $17.11 a month. In regard to the revenues, as you can see, the majority of our funding does come from our tax levy. 82%, a little over 82%, comes from the tax levy. However, we do get some additional funding from state aid, and this year we received $345,000 additional in state aid. We also get additional fund balance, miscellaneous revenue, and special revenue. And again, along with exploring efficiencies and other outside funding options, finding ways to generate revenue continues to be an ongoing discussion. It's something we'll continue to explore. I will share that we do have a couple of out-of-district tuition students from other public school districts that attend our special education programs in Hawthorne, which is a source of revenue for us, but obviously a small portion of revenue for the district. To delve further into our revenues, you see that we are using using the $736,655 of allowable health care adjustment to assist in covering the 15.1% increase in health benefit premiums and the projected 15% increase in 2024. They're projecting another 15% increase in 2024. I mentioned we received some additional state aid this year in the amount of $345,584, and you see that on line 2, our state aid. The amount of budgeted fund balance used for the 22-23 school year was temporarily high. As you can see, the year in 22-23 school year, you see the budgeted fund balance was significantly higher than the proposed year, and that was because that during the pandemic, they temporarily allowed you to increase that fund balance number, and we were able to allow increased use of that money. Now we're trying to reduce that number to a more, to reflect the historical amounts, the amounts that we've used in previous years pre-COVID. We've also budgeted a little over $1 million, $1.2 million from capital reserve funds for 3 projects. And that will include the district's share of, again, those grants that we talked about for partial roof replacement at Roosevelt and Lincoln Middle School, the district share of anticipated costs for the grant, the COPS grant for the PA system, and the high school replacement fencing around the perimeter of our high school fields. Okay, so, and if I could talk briefly, you see that line where it says capital reserve. If I could talk briefly about capital reserve. So we have, outside of our operating budget, there's 2 accounts, 2 reserve accounts, a capital reserve account and a maintenance reserve account. And those accounts, we're able to put money into those accounts at the end of each budget year. You can kind of look at them as almost like a savings account in the sense that we can then use those funds for certain projects. So for capital reserve account, you can do capital projects or replacement projects. It could be anything from roof projects, boilers, windows, doors, those kinds of capital projects that you're replacing something in your district. The money cannot be used in your operating budget, but they can be used to fund some of those projects, those capital projects. Okay? I can tell you that when I arrived in Hawthorne in 2015, that account was actually negative. It was at 0, but it actually there was no money in that account. And I can tell you today we're over $2 million in that account. And that's important because if projects do arise that we need to address, we have that money set aside in our capital reserve account to address those items. We also have something called a maintenance reserve account, and that's mainly for repairs. So again, it's an account that we can use if something breaks and we need to repair it, a heating or ventilation unit breaks and we need to repair it, we can use that money because we probably didn't budget for it, right? Can't anticipate these things happening. So we have that maintenance reserve account that we can pull from that account and make those repairs without impacting our operating budget for the year. So we do have those accounts, and I can tell you that account is also over $2 million, and I'm proud to say that we have that money there in case of an emergency and something needs to be repaired. All right. I mentioned just a couple other things on this slide. I mentioned the tuition. You see a slight change in tuition. We had an additional student, tuition student who will be coming to the district. That you see on that slide. Okay. All right. In terms of our appropriations, this slide shows our appropriations for the 23-24 school year, and it's divided into categories that mimic the categories that the state requires the district to report as part of our district budget. You'll see from this slide that approximately 43% of our total costs are associated with general and special education instruction, which includes salaries. So almost half of our costs are related to that. You'll also see that there are other categories here, such as instructional improvements, out-of-district tuition, debt service, so on and so forth. We mentioned previously, as in the slide that I showed you, that our out-of-district tuition costs, our transportation costs, and our health benefit costs have increased significantly. Although they make up a smaller percentage of cost to us, there have been significant increases in those areas. And you can see that in this slide here. So if we look closer at our general fund appropriations, our first line of our out-of-district tuition line has increased over 10%. More than half of this increase is due to the increased enrollment at PCTI for the 23-24 school year, from 164 to 195 students. If you look at the next line, our instruction line, there's a decrease there, and that relates to a smaller projected enrollment and budgeted amount for our extended school year program. We reduced that a little bit. You can see a sizable increase in support services, and that includes things like one-to-one nurses for our special education students, our occupational physical therapy services, our paraprofessionals, or our aides. So there's a significant increase there. We have reduced our administrative costs to help balance this budget. Transportation, although I mentioned that there's been significant increases in transportation, you see a decrease in that line, and that is only because that we were able to amend something called our ARP-ESSER funds, or what's called the American Rescue Plan Elementary and Secondary School Emergency Relief Fund. We were able to use some of those funds to offset some of our transportation costs. The challenge with that is these are not recurring funds. These funds will expire, so that is a temporary solution to these expanded transportation costs, but that's why you see a decrease in that line. And finally, again, you see capital projects, and again, I mentioned that they're funded through the withdrawal from our capital reserve account, not from the current tax levy, and those amounts allocated are, again, are for the roofing, the communication projects, and some other projects that I mentioned previously. And so that gives you a little bit of a closer look at our appropriations. All right. As we continue, the following slides will outline the specifics about our 23-24 budget and specific items that are included in this budget. So our current, the 23-24 budget supports all of our current instructional staffing in all of our schools, all of our existing programs and services, all of our current extracurricular activities, clubs, athletic programs. And just to give you an idea, we have 19 varsity sports at the high school, 7 teams at Lincoln Middle School. We have 20 clubs at the high school, 15 at the middle school, including our intramural programs. Other extracurriculars include things like marching band, fall and spring drama productions at the high school, the spring drama production at the middle school, student council at both schools, our honor societies, Italian, Spanish, and National Honor Society, our Heroes and Cool Kids program, No Place for Hate. All of these types of programs are all included when I talk about extracurriculars, clubs, and athletics. It includes our ongoing professional development at all levels. It includes curricular revisions in accordance with the New Jersey Student Learning Standards. We're going to talk about some of those in a few moments. It supports our Bear Cave transition program for our 18 to 21-year-old students and our whole program, or our alternative program, in district. In the area of technology, this budget supports the following items. Number one, it maintains our one-to-one initiative for students in grades 6 through 12. So that was initially funded through a referendum. But obviously there's recurring costs with that now, and I'm going to talk about that in just a moment. Along with this one-to-one is a teacher one-to-one initiative, so we're replacing our staff laptops for our teachers in grades 6 through 12. We are providing new Chromebooks for our incoming 6th graders and 9th graders, and again, that's the recurring cost for us, so each year we provide new devices for our incoming 6th graders and incoming 9th graders. And those, the extra devices are then sent down to our elementary schools. And I can share with you, we are just about one-to-one in pre-K through 12 because of that new initiative. We'll be placing new computers for all of our security guards at our security stations at all schools. We'll be providing new laptops for some of our special ed students in the elementary school programs. We'll be rolling out a new district website, and we look forward to rolling that out probably in January of 2024, possibly a little sooner, but definitely no later than January of 2024. We're excited about the development of an esports arena in our newly renovated high school media center. The media center will be renovated this summer, and within the media center, we'll be installing an esports arena which includes the building of custom gaming computers. And you can see on that slide some pictures of computers that were built for our STEM program a few years ago, and that's done by our technology department. They're able to build those computers. Last summer, we also built computers for our broadcasting class, so we're excited about that new addition. We'll be expanding our cybersecurity training for our staff throughout the district, and we'll be increasing our security cameras, especially at the elementary schools. I can share with you that currently we have about 181 security cameras, both inside and outside, throughout our district. So we have quite a few, but we definitely need some more, especially at the elementary level, and that's something we'll be doing as part of this budget. In the areas of curriculum instruction at Hawthorne High School, again, this budget will maintain our current academic programs and AP course offerings. It supports the development of curriculum for the following new courses: AP Seminar, Rock Band, Behind Broadway, Songwriting, Exploration of Careers in the Trade Industry and Economics. It supports curricular revisions for the following courses: our English Language Arts courses, STEM Process and Design, Coaching Principles, Sports Medicine, Healthy Choices for Student Athletes, and Algebra 1 and 2. And it continues to provide professional development opportunities to all staff, including our Summer AP Institute for high school teachers. At the middle and elementary schools, this budget supports the development of curriculum for a new music technology course at Lincoln Middle School. It supports curricular revisions for the following courses: our K-5 Research and Exploration course, our K-8 English Language Arts courses, our STEM 7 and our STEAM 8 courses at Lincoln Middle School. It also supports the purchase of a new McGraw-Hill Wonders English Language Arts program for grades K through 5, and continued professional development opportunities for our staff, including Conquer Math training and training for our new ELA series. So that's an overview of some of the things that this budget does include. Obviously, we can't go through all the things that are currently in place, but those are some of the additions, some of the new areas that this budget will support. So with that said, and before I turn the meeting back over to Mrs. Goff and the board for questions or comments, I would just like to take a moment to thank Ms. Ambrose for her efforts in preparing this budget. Appreciate all of her hard work to prepare and submit the budget in a timely manner. As I said, this is a long process that takes months to complete. The other thing I'll share with you is that budgets, they have to be flexible because we can't predict everything that will happen and everything that will change throughout the year. So there has to be some flexibility within the budget. So again, it is a challenging process. I want to also thank the administrative team. Their continued support and vision for our school district is critical to the development of our long and short-term goals for the Hawthorne Public Schools. I appreciate you guys being here tonight and for all that you do throughout the year to support the development, not only the development of this budget, but more importantly, to support our students in all of your schools and all of our schools throughout the district. Finally, I want to thank the Board of Education, more specifically our Finance Committee, for the time they put into preparing this challenging budget. I appreciate the support of the board through this process. And finally, I'll just say that we continue to be proud of what we accomplished over the past year. Look forward to another successful year, and as I always say, there's always more to do, right? We're always looking to push the envelope and move things forward. And I'm excited to do that with this board and our group of administrators as we enter the new school year. And on that note, I'll turn it over to Mrs. Goff and the board for any questions or comments they have.
Thank you so much, Dr. Spadafore.
Thank you.
Board, do you have any questions?
Dr. Spadafore, on one of the slides you referenced the state aid. Do you know roughly, or maybe Ms. Ambrose, how much are we still underfunded from the state?
I think we're almost at full funding.
Yes.
I was
I
thinking
don't-
about next year.
Yeah.
I know we were hoping for some additional funding from the state this year, so I wasn't sure if maybe, because if I'm not mistaken, isn't like last year, allegedly like the last year to supposedly come up to whatever, because it was, my understanding was the state funding formula was to be implemented over the years.
Correct. And we've gotten, fortunately, thank goodness for us, we've gotten additional state aid in a very similar amount to what we got this year, that $345. Some years have been a little bit higher, some years a little bit lower, but that number has been a typical number for us. You're right. If we don't get additional state aid this year, that will provide additional challenges for us. It's always hard to say with the state. Obviously, we don't know what we're going to get. That's the other part, and I'm glad you brought it up. One of the other things I think that people need to understand is, as we develop this budget, we don't have that number until the end of February, beginning of March. So we're developing a budget without knowing that state aid number. And then we kind of have to back into that number when we get it, and we have to add that to where we are. So sometimes it requires us to make additional cuts, and sometimes we get lucky and we get more than we're anticipating, and we it helps us. But to your point, that is it's an unknown every year, and it is a challenge every year. So thank you.
Any other questions? Mr. Cludio, Finance and Administration.
Sure, thank you, Madam President. For the 10 years I've been part of the Finance Committee, not one year has been not challenging. This year is no exception. Inflation has affected every single industry across the board. It's no secret that Board of Education is also part of that, of those areas impacted. Board of Educations are facing a 30-year high as far as inflations. So those challenges are certainly there. By the same token, every year, including this year, it's always a team effort getting the budget put together. I just want to, on behalf of the board, thank, like Dr. Spirito stated, everybody that's responsible for it. Obviously, our business administrator, Ms. Ambrose, Dr. Spirito for having his finger all over that, the finances, for fellow board members, and obviously our administrators for your contribution. While we have challenges ahead of us, we do feel confident that with the team that we have in place, again, including our administrators, we are going to successfully navigate through them for the benefit of the students that we serve and the taxpayers entrusted to us. That being said, Finance and Administration action items pursuant to the recommendations of the Superintendent of Schools, the Committee on Finance and Administration recommends the following resolutions. On page 3, F1, approval of budget for the 2023-2024 school year. On page 4, F2 and F3. On behalf of the committee, I so move.
Second.
Moved by Mr. Clovito, seconded by Mr. Palouse. Any discussion? I would like to echo Dr. Spirito and Mr. Clovito's thanks to the various stakeholders. It definitely speaks volumes about the Hawthorne machine that despite rocky waters, it's still, we're able to press on, and the main focus is the student in the classroom always. As a parent, taxpayer, board member, I'm eternally grateful. And just so the community knows, the next year budget conversation starts in 10 minutes. But seriously, we're already, Dr. Morell's already thinking about deficits for next year. So I think that's how we stay somewhat ahead of the curve, is that we are always looking to for what's coming down the pike. There are many unknown variables, but I'm eternally grateful to all the administrators sitting here with us. Fairly Stronger Together, thank you for coming. All of your staff, I know you guys had to make some hard decisions. Ms. Ambrose, Dr. Spirito, the Finance Committee, we're just very grateful that this could have been, the number is scary, the number that we had to take off, and I know that when we first heard the number, we were all very alarmed, because you're thinking, oh, like whole programs are going, but the meticulous, snipping here and there, just very, very grateful, and the community needs to know that that's what had to happen to make these things, to make it okay. So thank you. Any other discussion? Roll call, please.
Mr. Clavija?
Yes.
Mr. Doyle?
Yes.
Ms. Arentraut?
Yes.
Dr. Morell?
Yes.
Mr. Palouse?
Yes.
Mr. Shortway?
Yes.
Mr. Totaro?
Yes.
Mrs. Dodd?
Yes. Public be heard. At this time, members of the public may speak, may ask any questions, or make comments on educational issues or school matters.
Hi, thank you for the presentation. Not a numbers person, I teach language arts, so it really helped. I definitely appreciate that. You mentioned earlier the possibility of some cuts for next year. I was just wondering if there's information for the public about what some of those cuts might be.
So I could tell you that we did have to make some decisions. The good news is we're not cutting any programs. There was discussion about programs. If you give me 1 second, I will give you more specifics. I could tell you that unfortunately there's some staffing positions that will not be returning, but to be honest, that's going to be communicated over the next few weeks with our staff. So, I'm not going to obviously share those here with you tonight. We were fortunate to have some retirements, which did assist in that process. I'm just looking at things that I could share with you. Again, there were some.
Were there some educational programs we did?
Yeah,
like some
educational.
online programs.
Right, online programs. I'm just
renew?
looking at things that I don't want to. There are some, again, there are some staffing positions, there are some educational programs. We did reduce, to be honest, some of our utilities projections in hopes that, things would work out in that way. We were able to negotiate some reductions in rent for for their outside facilities. We did get a reduction, a slight reduction in our PC2I tuition rate. Although they took more students, there was a slight reduction in the tuition rate. We did cut some supplies. There were some supplies areas for different schools and our school budgets in our departments we cut some supplies, and again, some positions. So combination of those things together,
All that's up.
yeah.
All right, thank you.
You're welcome.
Mr. Murphy, can you sign in?
Oh, I did.
Oh, did you?
Yeah,
Okay.
Thank you. Thank you.
Any other public comment?
Just make a comment real quick, and that's where the team effort comes in as far as, the reductions.
Right.
Every building had to basically bare bones at this point as far as
Right, many small
Supplies and whatnot.
reductions
Mhm.
add up to larger. If everybody chips in carrying the weight of.
Mm.
General comments and questions from the board related to the school. We're also gonna do new and old business all at once. I'm not starting with you, Mr. Lewis, don't worry, I already see you shaking your head. It's not happening. We're gonna start with Dr. Morel.
This week I had the pleasure of attending the TREPS program. That was my first time attending the program. I'm kind of bummed out that my children didn't get an opportunity to do that. When I went back home, I was explaining it to my children what we did, and my daughter was funny. She said she would have sold rocks. She liked rocks around that age. I said, well, there was crystals. She's like, I would have done that. So, but I had fun. You can very quickly spend a lot of money. But I got myself some dog treats. I'm happy to report my dog loved it. So I was happy about that. And I got a wonderful tote bag because there's never enough tote bags to go food shopping, right? You walk into the supermarket like, oh, I don't have a tote bag. So I got some really nice tote bags, and I tagged along with somebody who read their tarot card. That kid was cool. If anybody got to him, he was reading tarot cards. He was so excited about it. But I really like the program. I do want to make, and I don't know if this is it, but it was funny. I was speaking to a parent who had, and I don't think she knew, and I really don't know either. So it may be a recommendation that if there's one more class session for TREPS, to talk about after the marketplace in terms of lessons learned. Did you market your product correctly in terms of costs and benefits? She shared that with me, and I thought that was a really good point. And I don't even know if there is another one, because I always felt like the marketplace was the culminating event, but I don't know if there was another session afterwards. So I told her that I would move it along to the powers that be, because like I said, we were talking about the program, but overall it was a great night. It was packed, the cafeteria and the gym at Roosevelt, and it was just so nice to see the students so eager to sell their products. So I want to just share that.
Mr. Shortway?
I'm good.
Mr. Doyle?
I just want to continue to express the gratitude and thanks to our Finance Committee, Dr. Spirito, Ms. Ambrose, the rest of the entire board, all of our administrators and teachers. I mean, there's so much work and different components that went into structuring this budget and ultimately getting it passed. And it's truly something that we should all be proud of. It allows us as a district to continue to move forward, which is very important. We don't want to ever have to take steps backwards. There's a lot of competition out there, and our goal is to continue to be competitors and keep moving this district forward. And I think when I say this, I think I speak for all of us, that we're all very proud that we're able to, again, put forward a successful budget that's going to allow us to continue to do that for everybody in the district. So thank you, everybody.
Thank you, Mr. Doyle. Mr. Gudido?
The trust program, was successful because there was nowhere to park in that parking lot.
That's the truth.
It is. Want to congratulate our senior athletes as they're culminating their spring seasons. Speaking of seniors, want to congratulate Leah Alves and Bella Palouse on valedictorian, salutatorian. So.
Mr. Totaro?
Good thing about being towards the end when this happens, I just get to say everything they say. But on top of that, TREPS was awesome. I also too went in with money and came out with none. It was a great event. It was just to see the camaraderie of all the students. It was just phenomenal. I got to go towards the end, and seeing them all race to put their sold out signs was phenomenal as well. But thank you, Dr. Spirito, Ms. Ambrose, and administration for everything that was previously said. I just want to say that one other component I think we got to revisit and just touch on so everybody's reminded, that 15%. I mean, that's a big, staggering increase for any budget, right? Let alone one that only has a 2% cap to it, right? So, and then now that we have to potentially face that again next year,
The health benefits.
the health benefits,
Yeah.
excuse me, yes.
I'm just like, nope, we're not raising the budget 15%.
No. Specific to the health benefits, sorry if I.
Which is
clarified.
mandated, which is we have no control over.
Correct,
that.
yes, and to that point, from the state level, that needs to be looked at. I just have to reiterate that needs to be looked at from state level, legislators, Senate. I mean, they really need to hone in on that because we just cannot sustain that type of increase year over year. And also, congratulations.
Yeah, thank you.
Ms. Aaron Trout.
Two things for me. First, thank you to all of our school leaders that are here tonight, not only for being here, but for everything you do in our schools throughout the year. It's nice to see you at meetings though, too. Second, wanted to remind everyone that the Hawthorne High School, the Adams family, I know this is not relevant, but our theater program is just so awesome. To remind the community, the public, it's this Thursday through Sunday, so you can find information on our websites, but definitely, I think it's great to support our students. And congratulations to Bella, of course. But
Thank you. You stole my thunder. I was going to mention the theater production, but really, I just have to say that I'm proud to be part of this board and to be, here for as many years as many of us have been. My youngest is graduating, and I'm going to continue to, stay on as long as I can. But it's a great community, and we have a great education system, and we just got to continue to build on that. But excellent. I'm just proud tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Cruz. I agree. Ditto to everything everybody said. Am I the longest standing member up here? Well, then in that case, I should have had some more pearls of wisdom, but I am very grateful to be a part of this. Very, very grateful. Thank you all again. I guess that is it. We can entertain a motion for adjournment.
motion.
Second.
A motion by Dr. Morrell, seconded by Mr. Clavio. Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Mr. Clavio?
Yes.
Mr. Doyle?
Yes.
Ms. Aaron
Yes.
Dr. Morrell?
Yes.
Mr. Palooz?
Yes.
Mr. Shortway?
Yes.
Mr. Totaro?
Yes.
Mrs. Scott?
Yes. Thank you so much, everybody.
Have a good night.